Hi, everybody. Today's Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. Laith Marouf from Beirut joins us. Welcome, Laith.
Great to be with you, Nima.
Laith, let's start with the case of Gaza and Palestine. Donald Trump came out with a new plan, peace plan, he calls it. But it doesn't seem that he talked with the any party. I'm trying to just be not I'm not talking about Hamas. I'm not talking about those people. Even those people who are so close to the West, like PLO, they didn't talk to anybody for this plan. And what he's putting out, he says that they're going to abide by this plan or we're going to attack, surrender or you're going to be killed. What's so amazing about the plan that they don't mention, they don't specify when Israel would withdraw from Gaza. What's your understanding of this plan? Is that a some sort of distraction from what's going on because they want to have a reason to go just a fake reason, a fake motive to go and do whatever they want to do?
It's actually the opposite. It's almost like they're done with playing games of propaganda. We have to put it in the context of Thomas Barak, the Trump envoy to the region here, uh, last week saying there will be no peace between the Arabs and the Israelis, period, not only in Lebanon or in Palestine, that there will be only one submitting party and one dominating party, and that Israel is the ally of the United States, and basically it will be the dominator, the enslaver, the controller of the Arabs. And this quote unquote peace proposal is another example of outright telling the Arabic people that this is what it is. And this boldness um, that some people may see as boldness by the West is actually another example of how they've lost the game. They have lost all the military battles in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Iran, in Yemen over the last 2 years, and they've lost all the propaganda battles. So military warfare and propaganda warfare are lost causes for the West. The empire, the Zionist empire, ruled from DC. So the only thing that they have left right now is playing psychological warfare. And part of that psychological warfare is constantly speaking down and aggressively and racist wise and supremacist wise to the Palestinians and the Arabic and Muslim peoples who are resisting, in hopes that just the sheer of audacity of, on the one hand, the mass killing of innocents in a genocidal manner that is broadcasted on all the media, and or the this sheer arrogance in statements like this supposed peace proposal would lead the resistance to demoralization, and somehow the West will be able to win uh, through psychological warfare what it couldn't win through either military or propaganda warfare.
The other point, Laith, when it comes to the peace plan, is that they don't, in my opinion, they don't know. Donald Trump doesn't know what he wants to do with Netanyahu. Since he was elected, Netanyahu, 5 times Netanyahu went to the United States talking with Donald Trump. And every time it seems to me he's pushing for more. In my opinion, he wants to. I'm repeating my opinion because I want to put it out because they don't talk about it. But you see that they want to capture the northern part of Gaza. You see what's going on in the West Bank. Donald Trump said he doesn't agree with Netanyahu. He doesn't let Netanyahu to capture the West Bank, to annex the West Bank. But in reality, is the opposite. What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, this is part of this psychological warfare is this up and down, up and down, up and down. Because every time the masses clearly see reality and understand that the Arabic regimes, and Muslim regimes that have been vassals since the end of World War II are still vassals, and or that the whole collective West elite are behind this genocide, we see these psychological warfare operations where, all these Western countries are acknowledging Palestine as a state. And that is apparently a fight between these capitals and their master in Washington, D.C. This is how it was set up, the propaganda over the last week or so, with those acknowledgements of Palestine as a state, when in reality it's all part of the same team. They're all playing different roles. Confused, then shock, then confused, then shock. Okay? So this is the shock after the confusion. Just before those acknowledgements of Palestine as a state, everybody in the world was clear that the only ones that are supporting the Palestinian liberation are the axis of resistance. Everybody else is collaborating. And suddenly we have that admittance of Palestine as a state, confuses people, thinks that there's some change. The attempted assassination of Hamas leadership in Qatar, that's another psychological warfare operation, where it was made to make Qatar look like it's gonna break away from America, or Saudi signing with Pakistan, or Indonesia claiming that it's going to send 20,000 troops to defend the Palestinians. And then suddenly we get the shock of all of these states signing on to Trump's decree. Okay, so confusion, shock, confusion, shock. So the audience, the people, the masses around the world need to stop being taken for a roller coaster ride willingly. You all have a historical record in front of you that you can read as audiences of the non-stop collaboration and submission of the capitals of Europe to the United States, or the capitals of Arabic and Muslim states to the United States, and actually the control of the Zionist of Washington, D.C. Trump is a senile, person. He's already done before he was senile. I mean, people are just gonna go watch his interviews, grab them by the pee, and before that, all the way to Home Alone 2, the movie, or The Rascals, the movie. This is a dumb person who's now senile. Of course, he's not the one that's making the decisions in Washington, D.C. And of course, he needs Netanyahu to visit him every couple of weeks to remind him where the plan has to go.
The plan is to release, the main goal on the part of the Trump administration, to release the hostages, the prisoners in Palestine. The whole plan is all about it. Because since he took power, he's just simply talking about hostages and they have to release them, bragging about those people who have been released so far. And there is no guarantee in this peace plan that if they release the hostages, the prisoners, they're not going to get back and they're not going to attack Gazans. So when these countries, I saw even India coming out and welcoming the peace plan, but they don't know what is the main goal of the peace plan. In your opinion, the main goal, how do you find the main goal? It's not about withdrawing from Gaza. It's not about withdrawing from the West Bank. It's not about two-state solution. Is it all about the hostages, or do you see something else?
It's a demand of the Palestinian peoples to surrender. Okay? The hostages, they don't give a damn about them, quote unquote hostages, the prisoners of war. that the Palestinians are holding, the Zionists themselves don't care about them. They're disposable, expendable, and otherwise they would have agreed to a ceasefire since October 9th, 2023, when Hamas told the Zionists they're willing to exchange all their prisoners of war captured with the Palestinian prisoners of war that are languishing in Israeli prisons. And they have refused every day since. And by the way, the Palestinian prisoners that were released in the various exchange deals over the last 2 years, vast majority of them were sent to Gaza. Okay, so there's maybe around 600 somewhat, whatever it is, Palestinians that were released to the West Bank, but a large, huge number of them have been released into Gaza, and most of them have died since under the genocide. So even this, the exchange deals led to more killing of Palestinian prisoners than their freedom. Okay, and there's tens of thousands of Palestinian prisoners right now. These are the ones that we can verify because there is tens of thousands that are kidnapped from Gaza that nobody knows about, that they're kidnapped, okay, that are languishing in these Guantanamo-like prisons in the desert of South Palestine. So, no, there's no, Trump doesn't care, or Netanyahu doesn't care about the Israeli prisoners of war.
Two concepts on two-state solution. One says that if we go with the plan of two-state solution, we can push Israel back and then somehow negotiate with Israel or make some sort of deal with Israel. The other says that the two-state solution is some sort of plan, a cover plan for what's going on beneath the surface, what's going on with the annexation. Looking at the West Bank, you see some pinpoints on the map. There is no West Bank in the hand of Palestinians. So it's all about the occupation. They want to buy time to occupy more and more. Which one do you accept more?
Definitely the quote-unquote two-state solution. Remember when it came, okay, when it started, this talk. It started at the end of the collapse of the Soviet Union and the destruction of Iraq as the richest, at that point, it was the richest, most industrialized Arabic country and had a lot of excess money that it was given to the Palestinian resistance. Not because I like Saddam or something, okay? But I'm just explaining to you when this Oslo path and the two-state solution began. When the Palestinians, when the whole world was in a depressive mood, where there was extreme unipolarity, where the whole Eastern Bloc has evaporated and the Palestinians were left alone, okay, and they were forced into this two-state solution, and they thought that it's their only way out. Now, of course, what had happened between the Oslo Agreement and the Second Intifada and what happened after, all of that proved to us that the peace process only accelerated, quote-unquote peace process on the two-state solution, only accelerated the colonization of the West Bank and Jerusalem, the mass expulsions and the killings of Palestinians. That's the only thing that it led to. And it gave the mistake of accepting the Oslo path gave a political window for countries like Jordan to legitimize its collaboration with the Zionists. If the Palestinians are talking to the Zionists, well, Jordan will have a peace agreement then. And the most important border with occupied Palestine, the longest border with occupied Palestine, exited the struggle. And of course, before that, the front with Egypt and Sadat signing the Camp David. So The two-state solution is a two-state illusion, and the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank have known that now for a long time, and this is why, as rest in peace, Assata Shakur would say, there's no people in in human history that have ever achieved liberation through appealing to the humanity of their oppressor. Okay, so there is no way to have the Zionists give Palestinians anything. Palestinians have to take it, and this is why we're where we at.
What do you expect from Arab states vis-a-vis the peace plan on the part of Donald Trump? What he's talking about, and do you think that is it gonna be positive with all the issues that have been raised? You know, the issue of occupation of Gaza. You know, it's some sort of ultimatum to the people of Gaza. It's not about negotiations. Your take on that?
You see, look, the whole military might of the empire, the whole propaganda might, the whole financial might of the empire, with its Arab vassal components for the last 2 years, have been dedicated 100% to crushing the Palestinian resistance in Gaza. And those 2 years were required to get to the edges of Gaza City. So Gaza City right now is not going to be captured easily. If it took 2 years to get to the edges of Gaza City, to take over villages and towns at the outskirts of the Gaza Strip, and where still till today in those villages and towns that are totally destroyed, from Rafah to Khan Yunis to Jabalia to whatever, there's resistance coming from under the rubble, taking out Israeli military positions and convoys. So it's a dream, a fantasy in the mind of Trump and Netanyahu that somehow these Arab vassals openly saying what they are doing for the last 2 years is going to change the formula. Oh, well, I have now the support of all the Arab and Muslim states behind us. This is Netanyahu, right? On this. I mean, he had that support for 2 years already. What is it going to change militarily on the ground in Gaza? How is Israel going to just suddenly defeat the Palestinians because the Arab vassals and Muslim vassals were allowed to now stop doublespeak, stop fakely supporting Palestinian rights in the media while working with the Zionists, and to do it openly now to support the Zionists? It's not going to change anything. It's all psychological warfare, and it's actually stupid psychological warfare that's not going to work, and it's a dragging the whole Zionist cult into further and further into their isolationist bubble that's so far apart from reality. Okay? And because of this cheerleading right now of these Arab vassals and Muslim vassal states, openly, it's even becomes a more enclosed echo chamber that when the collapse is going to come, everybody is going to be in total shock. So this is my 2 cents about that.
Don't you feel that the attack on Doha was some sort of intimidation on the part of not only Netanyahu but also the United States to force them into Abraham Accords?
Qatar was in on it, on that attack. And by the way, the Hamas representatives in Qatar right now are under house arrest. Similarly, the Hamas leadership in Turkey. And over the last 48 hours, there's been mass attacks by HTS on Palestinian refugee camps in Syria, with hundreds of men kidnapped and killed. There's even a video of a Palestinian youth in the old souk, old market of Damascus, in Hamidiyya market, being killed just because he was wearing a Palestinian flag T-shirt. Okay, so no, Qatar is an occupied country. Qatar is a fabrication itself, was created by the British out of thin air. And the that apology by Netanyahu, that non-apology by Netanyahu, is a clear proof of that. The man apologized only for killing a Qatari citizen, and Qatar accepted that apology. So it doesn't care about the lives of the Palestinians and the resistance. In fact, Qatar probably was the greatest asset for the Zionists and the Americans over the last 2 years, with their positioning as the quote-unquote mediator, and purposefully hosting the Hamas leadership to listen to spy on them, and having all those journalists on the ground in Gaza that most probably gathered a lot of information about positions of resistance and so forth, and even offered those journalists as sacrifices for Zionism to maintain the credibility of Al Jazeera and Qatar. All of that is part of the plan. And so in the minds of Qatar and the Saudis, and the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and the destruction of the last Arabic state that fought non-stop the Zionists since its independence in 1942, Syria basically, and the last Arabic state on the border of Palestine that is still militarily at war with the Zionists. In the mind of those Arab vassals and their masters in Tel Aviv and Washington, the erasure of these resistance voices within the Arabic space emboldened them to abandon their doublespeak. They think that they now don't need to hide collaboration and pressure on the Palestinian resistance to surrender, because there's no Arabic president that's going to come out and call them as treacherous collaborators anymore, right? So they have the field open for them to propagate their position that they've been working on for 100 years, collaboration with the Zionists.
Laith, one of the main issues right now is the aid heading to Gaza, that they're sending to Gaza. They see that Israel would attack them. They're trying to do everything. They're sending a lot of drones there just to intimidate. We had Meloni coming out and asking Italian people who were somehow participating in this sort of aid, in this sort of support, and because they're afraid of their citizens to be harmed by the actions of Netanyahu and his administration. Do you think that he's gonna attack them? He's gonna block the pathway toward Gaza?
Yeah, I cannot see in any possibility of these boats making it to the shore of Gaza. Let's explore that for a second. Do you think that the Israelis will let them land in Gaza? Okay, so after, what's going to happen? Are the Israelis going to let the aid come off the ships? Are they going to leave those internationals inside Gaza? All of this is illogical. So the best case scenario for the lives of those on the boats, and I wish for their safety, is that they will be all arrested, beaten, and detained, and then deported, and that all the aid that they're bringing will be looted by the Israelis and given to their own colonists. And the $100 million worth of aid and ships will be all in the hands of the Zionists. That's the best case scenario. The Italian Navy and the Spanish Navy followed this flotilla to spy on them, to give them warnings as they got closer that they're going to get killed if they continue that path. Similarly, with the Turkish drones, they were there to spy and collect all the data that's coming out of those boats on behalf of the Zionists. And now they're abandoning them as they're getting into the international, the Palestinian waters, 200-mile space, from the shore. So the worst case scenario for those people on the ships is that they will be killed and their boats sank by the Zionists. And I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I wish it doesn't. But if it happens, that they are killed in mass and or boats sunk, the Zionists will have maybe made a mistake at that point because of the reaction that will happen in specifically Mediterranean countries like Greece, Italy, Spain. So I'm not sure that the Zionists will be that stupid. But again, there's a lot of bloodlust, and the Zionists have been used to mass killing in the last 2 years, so maybe they'll be trigger happy and they'll make that mistake. But in my opinion, given that these are the two only possible outcomes, and that anyone could have calculated that these would be the only two possible outcomes to such a flotilla, that there could have been better targets for where this flotilla goes, whether it's blocking the British base in Cyprus or blockading the Strait of Sicily, thus allowing Italian dock workers and Italian peoples and Tunisian peoples to join in mass and have a direct impact on the shipments of weapons to the Zionist colony and trade with the Zionist colony, or even blockading the Strait of Gibraltar, while there's right now an uprising in Morocco, and the Spanish government is speaking about banning any trade with the Zionist colony or ships going to its ports that are going to the Zionist colony. That would have also allowed the Spanish and Moroccan peoples to join in mass, and it would have blockaded the path of the American armada that is right now trying to cross the Gibraltar on its way for a possible multi-front war against Lebanon, Iran, and Yemen. So this is kind of my opinions about this, and I hope they're productive.
The only country, Laith, that is capable of supporting these aids going to Gaza is Turkey because of its position. The army, they're part of NATO, and it doesn't seem that Netanyahu would confront the Turkish army if they go big in supporting these aids going to Gaza. But they're not doing anything. Just talking, all talk, no action on the part of Turkey. Why is it so difficult for them to at least helping these aids going to end the starvation in Gaza, to just helping somehow helping the people in Gaza, not just going against Netanyahu fighting it, but supporting these aids going to Gaza? That's all. I think at least they can do this.
Yeah, I mean, they're all talk and counter action. They talk and they do the opposite on them. So it's not so to expect them to go from counter action of their talk to actually acting there's a step there of at least being neutral before cutting their supply of oil and gas going to Israeli ports and cutting the diapers for the Israeli soldiers if they don't want to cut the oil and gas. This is I'm not. It's not. It sounds like a joke, but the vast majority of diapers that the Israeli soldiers wear on the front are coming from Turkey. So no, I definitely don't think Erdogan and Turkey, which is another vassal of the Western empire ruled from DC, will suddenly confront, the Zionists. And of course, Turkey signed on to that joint statement with Indonesia, Pakistan, Qatar, and Saudi supporting the proposal by Trump. And as I said, Turkey is put all the members of Hamas in the country under house arrest. And again, the mass slaughter that we saw in Syria over the last 2 days in Palestinian refugee camps is mainly happening in Aleppo, a city that is directly occupied by Turkey. Directly occupied by Turkey. Okay? So, no. Turkey is part of the problem as a state. Of course, the people of Turkey are just like the rest of humanity against this genocide and against the collaboration of their own state with this genocide. But up until now, they haven't rebelled in a way that could change the position of their state on collaboration with the Zionists. And so Turkey was responsible for the destruction of Syria, the bastion of Arabic resistance, the last bastion of Arabic resistance.
Laith, it was so strange to see Tony Blair being part of the deal and talking about Donald Trump supporting him. Who's this guy, and hey, where did he come from? Because you look at the history and what has happened in Iraq and in the region, and nobody has a good memory of him and his administration. So what is it the British role in the whole situation? Is because of that, that's as we had the head of Conservative Party, if I'm not I Badenoch, if I'm not mistaken. She's an African British, but she said that they're doing our job in the Middle East, and Tony Blair is part of that. Who's Tony Blair in your opinion?
Yeah, when you were asking where did he come from, he came from the loins of Satan. Okay, Tony Blair, from the deepest pit of hell. Of course, he's responsible for the death of over 1.5 million Iraqis with the lies that he put forward to justify the destruction and occupation of Iraq in 2003. And the only reason that Trump or Netanyahu, the empire, has the audacity to name Tony Blair as the viceroy, the colonial ruler of Gaza in this quote-unquote peace deal, is because no one had the courage in the West to bring Tony Blair to justice for his crimes. And he's been prancing around in the streets of Western capitals for a decade and more, 2 decades and more, with his satanic look, being offered millions on boards of directors of various corporations. I see this naming of Tony Blair as the viceroy of Gaza in this plan as another part of this psychological warfare. So audacious. There's nobody that doesn't know who Tony Blair is and what the crimes that he committed are. He's one of the most despised and hated political figures in the history of the UK, and one of the biggest war criminal of the 21st century. Okay. So to name him is just part of that rubbing it in, the psychological warfare, saying, you all know what Tony Blair is. And look, I'm going to make him the viceroy of Gaza. And you have nothing, you can do nothing about it. It's going to be right in your face. We're putting a war criminal to be in charge of an extermination camp, right? What are you going to do about it? That's what the intention of this, because it's unimplicable, by the way. It's impossible that the whole plan is impossible to achieve, except if the Palestinians surrender, and which they will not. And therefore, all of this is just part of the psychological warfare.
Laith, looking at Europe today, we know that German Chancellor Merz said that they're doing a dirty job in the Middle East. You look at the United Kingdom, totally supporting what Israel is doing, unless they're talking about two-state solution, which doesn't make sense overall when you look at their behavior and the way they're supporting Israel. So what's in it for Europe, in your opinion? Is that about Europe or these elites in Europe? And they're trying to, they're somehow different. They do have a different point of view when it comes to Gaza and the Middle East. Somehow we see the same thing when it comes to Ukraine. The people in Europe are somehow, they don't like the war in Ukraine, but they can do nothing about it. How about the Middle East? What's the obsession of Europeans in the Middle East?
There is no possibility to fabricate a European and or quote unquote white identity as long as the Arabic peoples exist. It may sound like very dramatic what I'm trying to say here, but let's take it very, step by step here. The fabricated, new, amalgamated European identity and or whiteness says it's representative of this Judeo-Christian heritage. It is the inheritor of Rome and Greece. But in reality, the Judeo-Christian heritage is the Judeo-Christian Muslim heritage. And it is ours. It is mine as a Palestinian, Judaism and Christianity and Islam. The Roman Empire, 2/3 of it was in what we would call now today the Arabic world, from Morocco to Iraq, to Syria. The Greek Empire, again, the vast majority of its land was what we would call now the Arabic or Muslim world, okay, Turkey and so forth. So none of these things, including the Greek alphabet and or the Roman alphabet, it would exist without what we would call the Arabic peoples today. Even the religions of the Greeks and the Romans, the Greek pantheon, the Roman pantheon, wouldn't exist without the Canaanite pantheon. So the mere existence of the Arabic peoples as proud peoples that are not defeated negates the existence of this fabricated peoplehood, Europeanness and or whiteness. Okay, so that's why it's the first victims in the Arabic world in this fabrication of Judeo-Christian European whiteness were the Jews, the Arabic Jews. The second victims of this were the Christian Arabs, because they don't want them to exist in our countries. If there is a large Jewish population in the Arabic world, or a Christian population in the Arabic world, as has existed for millennia, that mere existence tells you that European Christianity, European Judaism, is a usurpation of somebody else's identity. And the European capitals cannot speak in the name of Judaism or Christianity. That Baghdad is the one that should talk in the name of Judaism. That Damascus is the one that should talk in the name of Christianity. So this is really why the elite in Europe uh, are so dedicated to maintaining the Zionist colony. This whole thing will collapse if there's peace in our land here. If we're able to unify and that we're not refugees around the world. Okay, the destruction of Arab identity is essential to the fabrication of the new white European identity.
Yeah, yeah, actually, Laith, we, when it comes to the conflict between Iran and Israel, we learned that the United States has sent these aerial tankers to Europe 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and they're getting to Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. It seems that they're preparing for a new war with Iran. And all the things that we're witnessing around Iran in the region, it shows us that something big gonna happen. And do you think that this time around they're feeling that they can do something big against Iran, or they're trying to do the same, in my opinion, somehow distracting people from what's going on in Gaza? And because when you talk about attack on Lebanon, attack on Iran, attack on Yemen, it's all about Gaza. And how
Yeah,
do you
look,
find it, in your opinion? Is that the case?
yeah, I mean, I don't know which is going to be the battlefield, um, and whether it's going to be one battlefield or multiple battlefields at the same time. But the build-up, it's clear. The United States will be immediately from the first shot involved in whatever war they're involving themselves in now. Unlike what happened previously with Iran, where the United States came in late at the game and just did a small thing and left, or in Yemen, similarly. So this time it's clear that the United States will be directly involved in whatever war they start, the Zionists, in the region immediately from the first step, and will be invested fully. We will see, of course, all the military assets of the vassals in the region also being used, and this is where I think there's a big alarm about Pakistan. You know, I remember a week ago when they signed that military pact with Saudi, a lot of people mistakenly thought that this would be against the Zionist colony. And I said openly from that first moment that this is going to be against Iran. So I think this is the most dangerous part of this new military components being moved around in the region. There's also, in my mind, a bigger possibility that this will be a multi-front war immediately, not just against Iran, that there will be attacks on Yemen and very possibly on Lebanon in this battle that's going to unfold. How fast? I'm not sure. Remember, there was the snapback at the nuclear deal, the snapback mechanisms that the Europeans and the United States activated, and there is, I think, a window of 45 days or what have you for Iran to comply. So there will be most probably a war before the end of that window.
Thank you so much, Laith, for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
Thank you very much, Nima, for having me, and I'll see you next week, inshallah.
See you. Bye.